Or when you look at them, they mass up. So, like Trey was talking about, it's an out of balance situation. So when they mass up, I mean, when you look at them, they mass up because they're out of balance, and out of balance has its own bank. When someone's out of balance, you think that they're just simply copying a personality. No, it's a lot deeper than that. They actually have inside their universe the bank mass and energy and characteristics of the person they've dropped into the valence to. So that's why when you work on a BT or cluster, it masses up because it's really just carrying around a lot of old energy and pictures of other people's bank and energy and mass. So anyway, I had the DFP interview the various people, and I said the order was really simple. Take Joe Druggy and say, okay, I have a special interview for you today. Close your eyes and look back before you took drugs and tell me what you were like. All right, so what were they like before drugs? Okay, here's present time, here. And then before drugs, they had grief, pain in the leg from a football injury, a breakup, sorrow. All right, so the I keep knocking. Okay. The DFP would say, okay, what were you like? And, I used to carry around a lot of grief, long fall. And then I used to have pains in my back, BD, and so on and so forth. So what I did was I CS'd to have him scan back into those time zones and find the masses connected with and pressures connected with those somatics. And sure enough, they actually started running knots right there. Because before that, they had somatic shut off and mental shut off because of the heavy drugs. And I don't know if any of you in the room have a heavy drug history, but it does just that. It turns things off. So, this is about knots. Are you guys on knots or above?
I'm just OT3.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that's the yes back there.
Yeah, okay.
You gotta go.
So,
Yep.
So we started handling the street drugs and the heavy masses and the engrams and the grief, and the cases just opened up beautifully. And so I basically at that point only was doing what we call the prior assessment. Like, what were you like before you took heroin, or what was going on with you before you felt like you needed to drink so much, and so on. And so then after that, I would put them on back to the regular step, check past auditing. I mean, I basically just started them over. Check masses mistaken for the masses of the bodies, body, BT or cluster being a body part, and they start running. And so, working with LRH on the tech line, when you're doing a pilot, he's a lot more liberal. Now the Knots at this point wasn't a pilot, but it was new. It was sort of like the FDA still keeping notes on a drug even though it's been approved. These bulletins were written and the rundowns were supposed to be perfected and all, but it still was in kind of its infant stages. Because I think if I had launched into that sort of thing on something else that had been established for a long time, he probably wouldn't like that. But the point I'm making here is that we're in the free zone. And if we know the basics of something, and there seems to be an omission, and it doesn't change the purpose of the tech that we're doing with the person, like this, what was wrong with adding a drug? I mean, what could be more at a present time and sleepy and dormant than a drug, BT? It fits into the definition.
Resistive case.
Exactly. So I did that, and the people started opening up, and I told the other CSs and whatnot, and like I said, put them back to the points of the rundown. All right, somewhere along this time, the senior CS's page comes into my office and says, the senior CS's want to see you. That's never a good sign. It's sort of like, because the senior CS is in qual, and qualifications, corrections, trouble. And then the other words that can be tough are LRH wants to know. And because those on the ship were the start of a message run. LRH wants to know why you have 3 programs in South Africa, none of the stats are up. And that will start with the messengers going up to his office and running down, and the person gets frazzled. That's where the SRA thing started, which was mentioned earlier, because the messenger would give them an SRA if they needed it. But anyway, I get called in there, and it's Jeff Walker, who's a tough guy from New Zealand, and Jill Gleason, who's my direct senior on Knots. So they have this look on their face, like a scowl, and then they say, "Have a seat." Oh, but they played it well. So then the other half of the thing comes out, which is LRH wants to know if you were the CS that started adding knots and drugs on the program. And I said, yeah. Okay, LRH wants you to know. Very well done. And then they said, you opened up the door to these cases, you were applying the tech the way it should be, and very, very happy that you did this, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, the next part of this was developing the actual full drug rundown, because I mostly just did a prior assessment. Does everyone know what that means? Okay, so at the time, there was a celebrity on the base who was famous in England was a folk singer, and his group, when it was at its top, rivaled the Beatles for ratings and whatnot. And he was very, very ill, and he thought he was done with the rundown. And the other auditor wasn't getting any reads, and so on and so forth. So even though I was a CS, they put me on the case. So I think David Mayo was already in at INT, and Ray Midoff, who was actually a good tech guy, he was trained by Mayo. Depending on what era that you people left, the church, David Mayo was either a hero or a social pariah. And what some of you know or don't know is that he was the main CS who trained us all. And I'm sure that Trey had very high things to say about him, because whenever you worked for him, you know, he was a master interviewer, and he would unravel the case, and he was just the best tech guy to work for. So anyway, Ray Midoff took special interest in this celebrity, even though the bosses say not to. So I had a very busy time because I had this sick guy on my hands, and the preliminary diagnosis was MS. So he couldn't walk from here to there without heavy wobble and holding on to things. And so I got him on the cans. And, how you doing? You know, FN. How's your knots going? Fine. Small FN. Is there anything your attention's on? Tick. And that's how it started. I opened up the case with a tick. And so we started, whatever it was, you know, was something obvious, like, you know, I'm a little worried that I'm not walking well. Like, duh. You know, the guy was over at the Clearwater Hospital getting ACTH, steroids and whatnot. So anyway, we, Ray and I decided to CS him for drugs, because he was a heavy druggie. He played at Woodstock and all. So, LSD, you know, the full barrage of heavy street drugs. And then what we did is we started patterning it after the drug rundown that was on NED or Standard Dianetics. You know, taking a drug, what are the attitudes, emotions, sensation, pains, but instead of doing R3R, we would say, you know, we'd get a David Mayo's here.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
We'd get a, you know, a feeling or an attitude like, you know, being very high, and then we would insert it into, you know, a BTR cluster being that, having that, the opposite, not being or no high, being very high, copies, and all that. And that's the way, number one, the drug rundown came about, and then how it was expanded. Now, my only big beef about this whole thing is that they have, and I don't know who did this, but I think it was idiocy, is that they made the OT4 a OT3 rundown. I mean, what the hell is that good for?
Nothing.
Yeah, it's just a waste of time. Because if I've had somebody that's had that, like I was saying earlier, there's no BT or cluster that's as dormant in and dark and dank and asleep than a this lifetime drug BT. So I just redo it after it passed out any steps. And you have, even though they had the OT3 drug rundown, you have sensational results. Because that's the stuff that's hidden and prevents perception, prevents real gain like these other people were having, and so on and so forth. All right, so I'm going to slightly shift into the next subject.
Did the PC get better?
Oh yeah.
No, they died.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's still alive.
You
The
can call
only
it.
thing that happened was he had a slight blindness in one eye, and he could walk and he could do everything as before. So we had our little miracle,
Oh, thank
and
you.
it was quite amazing. And on a personal level, my dad would come to Clearwater because my sister was there, I was there, and my sister had a little baby, so they would want to see the baby and me and my ex-wife and so on. And he met this man, the musician, so he saw a before and after. And so I got a heart, what's the word, overwhelming, heartfelt letter from my dad. You know, I never thought you were doing all that much with Scientology. But then when I saw what you did for this man, I come to see why you were there and why you were doing it. And it's just amazing, you know, that, I mean, he could hardly walk, and now he's out by the pool and he's walking in laps and he's swimming and he looks golden because he got a nice tan and all this. And so just on that, it was a nice victory for me. All right, when I left the organized church in the middle of '82, I was completely miserable, to say the least. I was one of the first ones that they tried to get to do A to E, even though you were still in the church. And it was through Miscavige and all that. And me and the two other, the two ex-CEOs of the CMO were under lock and key. We had guards and all this thing. And we used to see each other and just laugh, because the guards were a joke. They were so stupid in a way. Around that time, I was in the RPF from, and then one day I just decided to leave and I left. So at that time, there was nothing. There was no help. There wasn't anybody like what I do today, which is called exit counseling. You know, helping people that have left cults. I've helped, besides Scientologists, people that were in Christian cults, New Age cults, Synanon cults. And it's a particular technology that easily ties into Scientology and dynamics. Anyway, there was nothing, and then finally I heard about this place over near Santa Barbara that was run by Mayo and Harvey Haber. And Haber was the money guy and Mayo was the celebrity. And it was called Advanced Ability Center. And have any of you heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's where I met Mary. And I stole her from them, but no, that's another story. But anyway, so I came back and I had a meeting with Mayo, and we were catching up. Hadn't seen him in all that time, and he was still like a string bean, because he had been made to run around the tree. And he was very, very thin to begin with. And then after the fat was gone, the body started to eat into its own muscle. And he couldn't even hardly raise his hands. And the only job he could find when he first got out was something strenuous like carpeting. And he just had a hell of a time. So anyway, but by this time he was better. And he was a lot more open and real and funny and smiling. I used to never see him smile at Flag. Did you, Trey, see him smile much?
Well, I never had that kind of contact with him, because I was always a field auditor.
Right. Well, I mean, when you were interning. But,
Oh yeah, he was businesslike.
yeah, but he hardly ever smiled. Anyway, so we were talking, and I had him tell me the story of how he basically healed LRH. Because he got whisked away in the middle of the night. LRH was getting run in Dianetics 2, 3, 4 times a day. And I happened to see some of the worksheets back when, and it was just like F1 gone, F2 gone. I mean, nothing was really getting run other than maybe, he was contacting a BT picture and blowing it and so on and so forth. But he was getting sicker and sicker, and the other auditor was removed. And just like Urquhart, ended up having to audit her. Can you imagine? You're auditing Hubbard and you get removed. Anyway, another story for another time. So one of the reasons I brought up the Knott's drug rundown and was to demonstrate something that I've been doing. So Mayo told me about the original inception ideas for Knott's, and it wasn't such a BT-oriented rundown. LRH made it that way. Mayo's original idea was to really concentrate on the key ideas of Knott's. When I'm doing the indoctrination step, I said the rundown you're on now is the 3M rundown. Misownership, misconception, and misidentification. And so Mayo's idea was to find out, like you're having trouble in an area, whatever it is, home, money, business, was to find out either who or what you were misowning from. Where did this come from? Whose identity was it? Not just to immediately say, do you have a BT or cluster that has trouble with money? I mean, that didn't do much in my concern, because the whole rundown, basically, the pre-OT is left out. And the pre-OT has misidentifications, misownerships, misconceptions, and so on and so forth. So I was at Roland's house, and I had a case that we had a conference over, and we were looking at him, and he had particular, I went over all the sessions with Roland. He was taking notes, and he had particular trouble with certain terminals, mother, father, etc., very family oriented. So I had already done, the PTS steps and, BT or cluster upset by your mother or father, or problems with those terminals, mostly Knott's oriented. So what I did instead, in which opened up the case completely and changed him, was saying, okay, tell me about your tell me about your mother. What traits does she have? Okay, so she's this and that. She screams all the time. Blow down. Okay, so what we're going to do first before we get into any BTs and clusters is talk about that and how it affected you. I didn't do an assessment, was the charge on that yours, BT, or cluster. I went right into the misownership and how this person affected him. And so he would tell me the various incidents, and if there was a hot incident, I would date locate it or find the BT that was messed up by that incident and blow it, and so on and so forth. And then at some point I would say, okay, did you take on or misown this trait of yelling? Oh, absolutely. BD. Okay, well, tell me about it. Oh yeah, I remember the incident exactly. We were in the garage and I was supposed to put the garbage cans away and I didn't do it, and she started yelling and screaming at me, and then I yelled and screamed back and it wasn't so bad. And then since then, what have you been like? I've been a yeller and a screamer. All right, and then part B, is there a BT or cluster that misowned the yelling and screaming trait from your mother? And do that until that F ends or there's a win that occurred or what have you. And so what I'm pointing out here is that you're in the free zone. And I'm really happy to meet you all and see how excited you are about Scientology. Because most people, because of whatever reasons, the way they left the church, bad auditing they had, so on and so forth, don't have an interest. And there's a lot of things that you can do for people, even if they've had most of the bridge. And what I'm saying here is you have the freedom to do like what I did on knots. Is take it back, and the same thing with the drug rundown. Take it back to a basic principle, and the basic principles of knots are these 3 M's. And use them. Use your brain, use your head. And another thing I started doing was, not every single time, but let's say you were auditing a hot cluster and you got like a 0.3, 0.4 blowdown. And on that one, did you happen to misown any of its characteristics? Oh yeah, this guy was always angry and he was shy and whatnot, and I misowned his stuff, and he used to make me think that I couldn't communicate BDFN. So again, there's nothing in the bulletins that say don't ask that, and it doesn't say that you should. But what's the basic of the rundown? Is that a person is influenced by these entities in and around his body. And they're going to be a cross influence. And unless he realizes it, you blow it and okay, there's been a negative gain, but what about the pre-OT? He's just sitting there and, watching a mass go and another mass go, and, but what about, you? How did your thinking change? Did you act like this BT? Did you act like your mother? Did you misown it? And so basically what happened with this one person is he used to come into session all restimulated and grouchy and what have you, and needing 3 knot sessions a day, to, you know, having 1, 2 coming in with very little, if any, re-stim, because he was getting rid of this stuff that he was misowning. He was actually getting the rundown. And wonderful changes. And I'm just so happy that Ro and I had this conference, because it changed, well, my thinking about, using the basics, and using my brain. I mean, what's this rundown all about? It's about these 3 M's. And you might as well use them. And we've been having great success. Any questions? Trey?
Just a comment that those are great examples of being able to think with the tech and audit the PC in front of you, and that's a very high standard to achieve. Very, very excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree. I was already doing that with the non-struck rundown for some weird reason. I have no idea why. I just thought, you know what, better be thorough.
Yeah, amen.
But this I hadn't thought of at all.
About using the
I was
key.
being really rote, and honestly was, to a certain extent, not including the PC. The guy that I was actually auditing is like, yeah, whatever. Just
Yeah, yes.
You know, yeah, it's become, you're always handling BTs and clusters, it's always that.
Yeah.
You do forget about
Yeah.
the pre-OT. So
Hey, what about me?
Yeah, exactly, it's like, hi, I'm over here, and you might not be reading, you know, so you're not gonna touch on it.
Yeah, but you're there.
Yeah, but you're sitting
You
there
know, you're
watching the
there.
whole scene.
Yeah,
So my question is about cancer.
yes.
You know, that's been, the church doesn't really handle people that have cancer. You know, people go to Mexico, and it just seems to me that that would be something that could be handled, you know, this way.
Well, any illness,
Yeah. So
You know,
I just
any
wanted to know
illness.
your viewpoint on it, and if you ever had to handle anything like that.
well, it's just basically I changed and went back to the basic rundown that was originally initiated by Mayo. And then as data has come out on LRH, we saw that he was fixated on BTs and clusters. So it got changed from its original intent. So I would just add, you know, let's say you're doing the chronic somatic, you know, let's say this person has tumors and pain in the spleen or wherever his cancer is. So you just start adding these steps, you know, or people that bothered him around the time that he got cancer. You know, I'd have to see it specifically, but basically you're gonna find out, you know, if he misowned it from someone. Yeah, Trey?
Thank you.
Yeah, it just it highlights the idea that misownership is just a normal habit and routine that people have.
Mhm.
And by asking them to take a conscious look at it, it kind of breaks that habit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this guy and others are just so much more aware. You know, because they also are aware of other people in the environment, not just their internal spiritual world. They're aware of, oh, that's not me, that's the supervisor at the hotel, or whatever. Yes, so as far as your question, you would just have to start putting in, you know, like depending on what you're doing, you know, asking for misownership or misidentification from the particular BT that they blew, or if you're doing PTS steps, find out, like I was saying, what traits they picked up from people that influenced them in and around the time they got sick, or who actually had cancer. You know, that's something that I would have to see as specifically, but if you understand the theories that I'm proposing here, you could do it yourself, or just call me on the phone you know, and I would help you.
I
Any
mean, I don't
other?
have cancer, but, you know, you
Yeah,
just
well,
wonder
but whatever,
if
it
you
could
could
be,
help somebody.
yeah,
It's a
it could
big
be
issue.
it could be a split fingernail.
Mhm. I got a split finger, could you help me? My big thumb itches.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, here we go with,
See if I don't knock things over.
thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
That's nice.
Thanks for being such good listeners.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't hear anything. All the way. No, that was good.
Duplicated.
Okay, well, this looks like you're still here. You are willing to listen to what I experienced on what I consider is OT 9?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I first ran across this material and I looked at it and it said LRH at the bottom, and it was obviously smuggled out of the church. And I tried running some people on it. I think I ran Pat Krennic on it, and she got some wins, and I got some wins. Then I put it away for about 12 years. Until, yeah, because, you know, because I didn't have anybody around me that was like, you know, ready to do 8 or 9 or whatever. So, until I ran into this tape that I presented a couple of years ago, or was it last year? And I presented a tape by Mary Sue auditing LRH. Remember that? Some of you
Yeah.
people over there?
Hard.
I heard it.
Was it
Yeah.
last year? I didn't hear it, I wasn't here last.
Okay, anyway, on the tape, he's talking to somebody. He says, "We got someone here," and apparently he's on the cans, and Mary Sue is auditing him, and he's talking to an entity. And he's asking questions.
Bathroom.
Yeah. He's asking questions to this entity, and the entity's answering him. This entity's totally awake, totally sentient. There's not a BT, it's not sleep or dormant. And I'm starting to think of, well, I'm kind of running across these guys too, you know. So this was a very interesting tape. And then he calls them. First, he calls them in theta beings. And the in theta beings, he says, are beings that they love out ARC, to create out ARC. And they, anyway, he's asking all kinds of key questions about tech and about knowledge and la la la. And then he calls them TARGs, TRAGS, I think is what he's called.
TRA.
He says, "Oh, TARGs," and Mary Sue goes, "TARGs, what is that, TARGs?" And he says, "Oh, that's just an ancient name they call these guys." So apparently he knew about it. And all of a sudden it clicked something in my mind. I went back and I found this bulletin that someone read that worked with LRH about TARGs. And it was called L13. And how to handle and audit these guys. And I audited this 12 years prior to this. I mean, almost 25 years ago. I tried to find TARGs and I found some and I audited them out. And that was L13, according to this guy. Well, I thought it was something he ran into, and, you know, I'm always into looking at lost tech. And so here's LRH talking about TARGs again, right in this tape. So I said, that's interesting. So I pick up the L13 again, and then there was a couple other people talking about TARGs, Philberg, and a couple other people who claimed they worked with LRH on this stuff. I gathered their material, and we audited these guys who are awake, fourth dimensional beings, Hubbard calls them. They're outside of the time continuum. They can see future, they can see the past. You can ask them a lot of questions, but you gotta be careful because you could be possessed by them.
There you go.
Okay? And hey, every church talks about these guys. They call them demons, they call them angels, they call them other things, but they are there. And there was nothing below on the gradation chart that I see that handles angels or people who operate outside of the time continuum. See, you leave the time continuum every time you go to sleep. In the morning, you got to wake up and see what time it is, because you haven't been tracking with the time continuum. You either go into your own universe or flipped out into another one. I just went to had a nap a little while ago during the break, and I could do these power naps. You know, just like totally go into a REM sleep for 5-10 minutes, come out totally like I had 8 hours. But I must have been tired, because when I woke up, I was going, where am I? Oh yeah, I'm at the convention. So you flip out of the time continuum. See? Anyway, these beings operate outside of the time continuum. And once I got rid of these guys, it broke a veil. And I looked at OT9 again. And I was able to see what Albert was talking about, where I couldn't see before. See? And I'll tell you what he was talking about. I'm just going to give you my win on it. Not to overwhelm anybody. I already seen we already lost a couple of people. And so y'all did OT3, right?
Yeah.
At least.
Mhm.
All right. Incident 2 we know about. Incident 1 was, let me know if I'm wrong, 4.6 quadrillion years ago, something like that?
4 quadrillion.
4 quadrillion.
And 15 days now.
All right, then I found, digging up the old stuff, right, 1952, old pamphlet, and LRH had this drawing. That fits on some of the information I got from this guy who left the bridge, the flag. He was a senior CS at flag. And he talked about the main body of Theta. Now, and he claimed that, well, this is the one I have. He claimed that Incident 1 broke up this thing. And since then, guess what? We've been trying to get back. Okay, so you got this body of Theta. The theory is that we were all here once. Let me put this thing on because no, I'm not going to do that. We were all here once. You all hear me? And Incident 1. Now, right here's my win. Right here's my win, because I realized that basically there was some beings that didn't break up. And if you ever decide to do OT9, you could figure this out for yourself. Okay, this is what I figured out on it when I did it. And also, there was some beings who stood outside. This is mess. This is we creating a mess universe here, see? With all our regions, eventually, for trillions of years. See, basically, there's 3 things wrong with the human race. They're in a state of amnesia. They don't know who they are, how they got here. They're in a state of, in that tape, Hubbard, with Mary Sue Hawley and Hubbard, he talks about us beings being too contaminated. We're too contaminated with BTs and TARGs.
And what?
Targs.
TARGs.
Is that
Beings that are
TARGS?
outside the mesh universe, TAR, yeah. Beings that are outside the mesh universe who are influencing us. Now, I'm going to give you the whole picture here. Because there's a whole other game here that's got to be done. You guys are probably done with knots, by the way. That's my evaluation.
What was that last one?
So, this group broke up into 3 main groups. And then they broke up into other groups. But he always calls them camps.
What?
Camps.
C-A-M-P-S,
Camps. My language, I must be getting tired because my language is not that bad.
C-A-M-P-S.
Camps, you know, like a camp, brownie camps.
Camp Hamley.
Yeah. One of the camp was eventually Zeno's camp. They were into control. They were into implanting, stuff like that. The other camp were into making bodies. They eventually became bio bodies, the bodies you got now. And they're into like, we having a lot of fun, not caring what they did with the bodies, tearing them up, whatever, abusing bodies, which we still do. I'm on my third cup of coffee, which I shouldn't drink. We still abuse the bodies, right? And also creating, and because of our creations, they created GEs and stuff like that. It's kind of complicated. Now there's a third camp. And that's the camp that people want to be free and want to free others from this mess. And basically, if you look at planet Earth, these two camps here have been fighting all along. We're fighting throughout the universe, warring with each other, where people want to be like, hey, I want to do what I want. And the other camp wants to implant and control. And we, auditors, or people like us, want to free these guys or free each other. Okay? It's my win on it. It was a great win because finally I decided, I kept going, if I look at this lifetime, I was swinging from different camps here. See, I didn't know where I was. I was in a state of amnesia. Right, going up the bridge, got rid of that state of amnesia. I did a lot of Dianetics. It's like 1,000 hours of Dianetics. I'm gonna say you have to. I did. Heavy drug case. Anyway, I realized that, hey, I'm on this camp over here. Freeing beings and being free. Right? And who was talking about, I think you were talking about, eventually, after OT8, you become so exterior that you're no longer in the time continuum. You become a fourth dimensional being. And you'll be able to see these stars quite easily, if you want. And if you look at history of people who are really enlightened, big beings who come to Earth once in a while, like Buddha or Yoganandi, people like that. I think I told you about my experience of finding or running across this yogi, this female yogi in India, very powerful being. And all she was doing, I mean, I look at knowledge anywhere I can. All right? Having done 3 bridges, I think I'm entitled to look at other stuff too. And I heard that this yogi was very powerful, and she was in California. Right? So I went down there. And I finally got down there at about 10. I thought it was all over. And I was walking toward it, and pretty soon other people were walking toward where she was at. She was at this big 3-story pavilion or something. And there was like 10,000 people there. Here it was 11 o'clock at night, 10,000 people. And they were so keyed out, theta-wise. And I thought, I was, okay, where is she at? I thought I was going to find another Jesus or somebody, but pretty close. She was a pretty powerful being. She was pretty, and she was like up on this stage, and she was about your size, a little less. And she was just standing there, and she was like, people would come up to her, and she would just hug them. And then she would hug the next person. And every time she hugged somebody, they would just go into bliss, go into ecstasy, just like, oh, you had to be carried. And I said, yeah, all right, come on. I got to meet this girl. I want to, give me the hug. So I got a ticket. And she says, then I said, oh, yeah, 11:15, I get to go right up. And they go, no, that's 11:50 in the morning. She's going to be there all night? Yes, she was there. Oh, this is her second night. She hasn't moved. She was already up there 24 hours, hugging people. And I saw her, all she was eating was a little bit of nuts and a little bit of tea or something, that's it. And she was like, If you could see a halo, she had one. She was like one of these angelic beings, you know. So I said, okay, came back. Luckily I had my RV and I still overnight the RV. Came back the next day, waited in line, got up there. All right, I was open, you know, I didn't have a closed mind about it. You know, I'm willing to experience it. Give me the hug. I mean, I did OT, Humpty Dump, right? Got the hug. Guess what happened?
What's
I went into total bliss.
Wow.
They had to carry me out. They had 2 people that had to hold me like this. I was like, my legs were all wobbly, and I was like, whoa, I'm 40. I mean, I was like blissed it up from this hug. And what she did was she's opened up, opened up my heart. I just all, whatever. My love, she blew this thing. I mean, I would have people complain about me. I was so strong and tough, and I was like, see over here. And she just blew that all to hell. I was like, felt tremendous love for everybody. You know, like here, you probably see me hugging people. Yeah, I didn't used to do that. Nothing in the bridge ever helped, handle that. I didn't want to handle it. I didn't care about it. But I had this new ability because all she did was hug me. No, she had a tremendous amount of theta and an ability to do this, that, as is, or I don't know what she did. I don't know the mechanics, but I do know that I ran into a very superior high-level being.
Was there a
Okay.
fee, Ray?
Huh?
Was there a fee?
No, no fee. No fee. People just donated. And then I looked her up on the internet. And there was this one country she went to, there was like 70 people in the stadium waiting for her to get a hug from her. I mean, people from all over the world would like,
70?
big follow,
70?
70,000 people.
Oh, 70,000.
70,000.
Out the 1,000.
Sorry, I'm getting tired.
70, oh.
70,000 people at the stadium.
Yikes.
The whole place was full, and people at the bottom were full, and probably waiting outside.
It's even more
So
than-
there are big beings, who come to planet Earth and to help us. And I think Elrich was one of them,
Wow.
right? He talks about, on this one thing I have, about only 1 out of 10,000 people, really make it to OT. And only 1 out of 100,000 are like this lady will be able to make it to that point, How many people here have done some sort of a healing by, good.
I've done an assist, but.
By an assist, that's cool, that's fine, touching the hands or whatever. Yeah, see, you're getting there, right, you're getting there. She was able to do something a lot more powerful, and then we could all do that. I think we all have that potential, and experiencing that, hey, that's what I want, stuff like that. That's why I came in for it, the OT levels, okay? I don't know if I would do it for 70,000 people. Okay, now, OT9, very interesting, OT9. I'll tell you what it covers. If you're gonna get audited in OT9, it covers,
Is that Excalibur or,
no, I done Excalibur,
okay.
it's not Excalibur. It covers this point right here. What happened in incident 1, the explosion, the whatever occurred there. Who put up remember you ever wonder, who put up this stuff about the cherub and these images and stuff? It covers that, who did that. And also, and it covers what was going on in here.
You mean just after the incident 1, is that what the time zone?
Well, there's no time here.
What are you
There's
looking
time
for?
started here.
Oh,
I can't tell you the rundown. I'm just telling you what it covers and when's
Oh.
at. Okay?
okay.
Because it's too long and intensive, and I want you to read it from LRH, not me.
Oh,
Okay? Yeah. Now, you mentioned, oh, you mentioned your contribution to the drug rundown knots, right? I'd like to mention McMaster's contribution to power processing.
Okay.
I'd like to mention David Mail's contribution to knots and happiness rundown, which is the internship I did under David Mail.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to mention, well, just that there's many contributions to this thing. If, like you said, dealing and handling the, with the standard technologies. And what I mean by that is the tools. Now, I was going, how do I handle this? Nothing was working as far as Dianetics, as far as my Scientology tools that I knew up to the Class 8 stuff or even Class 12 stuff. Nothing was touching the TARGs. They just laugh at you. Nothing was handling this area until I got into the technique 80 and 88 and those advanced techniques there. All right, and those advanced techniques handle TARGs and handle this thing here. Okay,
You say this thing here, what do you mean, instant?
this thing here meaning OT9.
Oh,
But you have to handle the TARGs first, because to me, that's the third well of fire.
how
Because
exactly are TARGs different from BTs and clusters?
Because they're awake. They're awake as you and me. And you know what they're doing. And they hate you. They hate you. They are, and they can possess you. And they can possess the person next to you for a few seconds.
Why do they hate you?
Because you can create and they can't. You're creators. They're destroyers.
Mm.
Well, if they're awake, why are they glued to us? Can they just split if they're awake?
Pardon?
If they're awake, why don't they blow?
You can blow them, yeah. That's what we do with the rundown. Why don't they blow? They can come in and out. They could be there for a while. Maybe even you ever done something and then go, what did I do that for? Or why did I sleep with that person? You know? I tell you, you get too drunk, you can be influenced. You get too, with other drugs, you can be influenced. You get too tired, you can be influenced. You lose, that's the third thing that Ever was saying that is wrong with the human race. It's like one amnesia, contaminated, and out of control.
Mm-hmm.
See, human race is out of control. They drink too much, they eat too much, they fight too much, they war too much. Some have too much sex, who knows? Out of controlness. What are we doing going up the bridge? We're trying to get control of ourselves, right? Control of our mind. It's like Trey was saying, because of your mind. Right, so you ought to be in control because people are out of control due to implants, BTs, and now I'm letting you in on something else that you got to handle, and that's the TARG area. I think that Mr. Miscavige and those people are definitely in control of TARGs. The TARGs are, you're talking to them.
This guy was definitely in control of.
No, not in control, is being controlled,
Or being,
or is a TARG himself. Because these guys destroy things. They destroy stuff. And he's destroying the church, happily. The creators create. All right? You don't have to take my word for it. But every religion talks about these guys. They call them angels, they call them helpers, they call them devils, demons. See? Where else on the bridge do you handle these guys? But if you go into church and say, yeah, there's this demon, messing with me, they'll say you're type 3 and they'll kick you out. Right? I've had people who show up, never been in church, say they're talking to me. This one girl said that, and I said, well, who's talking to you? So we have, we didn't have a conversation. You don't want to have a conversation with these guys. You want to be able to handle them and get them out of your universe or the universe of your PCs. And that's what we did. See, because they're there. Not all the time. Moment of weakness. Sometimes people have been implanted by them, sometimes not. Also, on OT9, it explains why they're there. Why there is such thing as, dramatization of Halloween is dramatization of Targs. You know, the monsters. The monsters. Why are these guys there? There's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason. There's demons, there's angels, there's what?
Now, to handle the Targs, it was the prior L13 had the handling for them.
That's what this one auditor put together, this thing called L13, and in L13 he had like how to handle them, right? But he didn't have the whole procedure because some of it's on the tape and some of it's on this other piece that I put together. You know, we're out here in the field, and I just like to say this, is that David Mayle told me, he was out of the church, and I have it in writing, that Hubbard left it up to him to develop OT 8, 9, 10, 11, up to 15.
To David.
David Mayle. And he never did. He was kicked out 2 years later. He didn't develop it yet.
Where did 9 come from then?
Bits and pieces.
From Hubbard?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Bits
The
and
data
pieces.
came from Hubbard.
So we have to put it together. See, we have to like, and I just put the boots on, just like, because I didn't see the church putting the boots on. I didn't see anybody else developing 8, 9, 10. Who else is doing that? Do you know anybody who's developing that stuff? Anybody researching that stuff? No. I came here to get this, and I'm going to get it, and you can have it too. And so what I did was when I got this about the Targs, how to handle them, and it unveiled what to do here, and I started to really listen and understand what Hubbard was saying on the tapes, and so anyway, so I said, okay, I pulled in 2 or 3 of my clients and said, this is just a test. I'm going to charge you for this. Have them sign a waiver. And it worked. I wouldn't be telling you if I didn't know that it was just a test. You know, this worked. We got rid of the Targs. They achieved OT9, which is character. One more thing about this. You may not know this, but you would know it after I say it. We all have a spiritual name. We all have a spiritual name, an identity. We all have a vibration. Everybody here, if you, how do you recognize somebody from another life? Say, oh, I know you, right? Vibration, different body. Correct? Right? I know people this lifetime that I know in some other lifetime. You? Yeah, it's a vibration. Your spiritual name